Welcome to this edition of FPD Roll Call. Today we'll be introducing our newest K-9 officer to the Florissant Police Department, Eddie. Later on in the show, I'll be discussing the June crime statistics and then discussing recent scams that have affected the senior citizen population here in Florissant. But before we get introduced to Eddie, Chief Lowry is here today to talk about how the new program was introduced and how it started here in Florissant.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. So, our community policing initiative at the police department, we're trying to find ways to go out and be able to touch the community, interact, to have our officers, our police department, myself, and all our officers interact with the community. And this idea was brought to me by one of our residents, Sherry Opich. Sherry is a former St. Louis County police officer. She retired actually as a security officer with Anheuser-Busch, and she came up with this idea, presented it to me about having a canine dog, which would be more of a community service dog, where we take this dog out into the public to different events, get the dog into the schools, have an officer obviously assigned, which is Officer Lori Mann, now that since we have the program, and bring the dog into the community as a way to interact with the public. And I think initially we were talking about the schools and taking it and having the officer bring the dog into the classroom, sit down with the class and introduce the dog, and then read books to the kids. And obviously a wonderful idea, and any way that we can get into the community. And so that's how it kind of started. And what has kind of evolved though is that now Eddie has become a very popular segment of the Florissant Police Department, and we get a lot of requests now for Eddie to come to different events. So he's been very popular at school picnics, parades. We plan on taking him to the senior citizens' homes, interacting with all aspects of our community, all different types of groups in our community. And what Mrs. Opich's idea is that her husband, Ed Opich, was a St. Louis County police officer, retired, and he had died of a long-term illness, and so she wanted to be able to give back to the community in honor of her husband. So that's why the dog's name is Eddie. And like I said, it's been just an unbelievable program. I mean, we got Eddie. Eddie was 2 months old. He's now 5 months old. And I can tell you that everywhere we've taken the dog, whether or not it's with children, adults, I mean, he's definitely been the hit of all of our programs, and it just really gets the interaction between our community and our citizens. And like I said, we have so many requests now for Eddie that it's going to become a full-time job for Officer Mann at some point, because there's just constantly people calling wanting to have Eddie come to their event.
Right, and we just had him out at National Night Out too, and seemed to be a real receptive, and the public really liked him. And sometimes that was the first time some people had seen or even knew about the program.
Exactly. Yeah, we had nine block parties that night. Eddie went to all 9 of those block parties, and like I said, interacted very well with the children, interacted very well with the adults. And I think no one wanted to see Eddie leave. I mean, I don't know if they cared about us as much as they could, but nobody wanted to see Eddie.
He stole the show.
He's definitely stole the show.
Said, right?
Absolutely. So I mean, Eddie is definitely taken off. He's been just a great asset to the police department, and certainly something that we're working towards is trying to be more involved in the community. And Eddie has certainly been a big part of that.
He's taken off. Now, and I've had a bunch of people ask me, and we'll just let everybody know, Eddie's not a normal canine officer. He's explain what.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So Eddie's our 4th canine that we have at the police department. But our other 3 are more working dogs. They're dogs that are they're for drug detection, crowd control, search, that kind of stuff. Not as playful animals, where Eddie is going to be a very playful canine dog, where the kids can interact, the kids can pet the dog, the kids can just really have fun and enjoy their day with Eddie. Where the other dogs are more serious, they're more goal orientated towards law enforcement, where Eddie is definitely all community service. And at some point, as Eddie gets older, we're going to try to make, as Eddie gets older and moves on after a couple of years, we're going to try to make Eddie more like a search and rescue dog.
Sure.
And instead of a drug detection dog or crowd control, we're going to try to do that. We honestly don't know that that's where Eddie's going to end up, but that's something that as Eddie gets older and quite honestly the puppy part of him kind of wears off, then that's what we plan on doing with him. But we'll have to see as time goes on. This is the first time we've ever tried it as any kind of program like this in the city of Florissant. So, and to be honest with you, I think it's kind of a unique program in law enforcement.
I think so. I don't know of any, especially in the St. Louis area. I think this is probably the first.
I think so, and I've actually had some discussion with some other chiefs about it, not just here in the St. Louis area, but throughout the country. And I mean, they follow his Facebook, which I know something Lori Mann's going to talk about. And I mean, they think it's just such a wonderful idea that other communities are probably going to start doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's huge for, you know, we're one of the first ones to start this program and kind of, you know, tread the way and show people how it can be used.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as I've seen it, you've seen it. How does Eddie affect not only the residents but the members of the police department?
Yeah, you know, so when Officer Mann goes on the street, she normally leaves Eddie at the police station. So Eddie has been a real morale booster around the police department. I mean, the people all our officers and our employees want to know when Officer Mann's working, unfortunately, not because they care about Officer Mann so much. Right. They want to know if Eddie's going to be in the station. Sure. But Eddie, you know, I like communications. Eddie goes in there. I claim that's his house. That's where Eddie feels comfortable. The dispatchers, he interacts very well with the dispatchers. Our secretarial staff, our officers. I mean, everybody just seems like they have a special place for Eddie around the police department. And it's been kind of something that I didn't foresee happening. You know, you bring him into a workplace, you never know how he's going to be perceived. Right. And like I said, when he's not there, people want to know where Eddie's at. Right. And he's been a real morale boost around the police department.
Yeah, you look around the police department, there's little bowls everywhere. He's got his cage, you know, so, and I don't know of anybody that has taken a negative, you know, approach to him. So even people that don't like dogs are petting Eddie and seem to be interacting with him.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, there was a time, and that's been taken down now, is that the communications, there was a sign on there, Eddie's room. Right. Yeah, the employees have really taken to the dog. Right. And like I said, there's a lot of the employees that will actually take Eddie home. So if Officer Mann's on midnight, they'll take Eddie home, and they'll spend time with Eddie and their family. And we've had many officers do that. Other employees have done that. And like I said, the employees have really enjoy the time that Eddie's around the station.
And that helps too with the interaction with different people, and you know, keeps his aggressive nature. You know, not necessarily that his nature is aggressive, but exposes him to as many people as possible so he can do the job that it's intended for him.
Absolutely, yeah, because I mean the whole idea is to make sure that that Eddie's able to interact with the public and with people. And you know, he's a full-blooded German Shepherd. Like I said, he's 2 months old. Or we got him when he's 2 months old. He's now 5 months old. So we got to make sure that he can interact with people. Right. And so far, I mean, he's just been a real hit for the police department and really the community.
Right. Well, I thank you for coming in. Anything else you want to talk about with Eddie, or?
No, I think we've covered it all. Okay. I know that I think Eddie and Officer Mann are going to be up next, and I think that those who haven't met Eddie will certainly get a good opportunity to at least see Eddie on the show. And like I said, we're certainly trying to make Eddie available to all groups. Right. And if Officer Mann can't attend the event, myself or somebody else will bring Eddie to the event. So we really do encourage people that, you know, if you got especially children, you like to see the dog come in, interact with the kids, or any kind of event, we're certainly open to it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll meet Eddie and his handler, Officer Lori Mann. Welcome back. We're here at the police department with Officer Lori Mann and Eddie. Here to talk about Eddie and introduce him to the public. So Lori, thanks for coming on the show and bringing the star of the show, Eddie. Sorry.
No, he's quite the star.
He's quite the star. So tell us about Eddie, how he came along, and then we'll get into some of the programs that you've done so far with him. And you've had him for how long?
3 months.
3 months. So he's been a pretty busy dog in the last 3 months.
Yes.
So just give us a little brief history on how Eddie came along and how we have him here today.
Eddie was donated by Sherry Opich. Okay. She was married to a county policeman who passed away, and she wanted Eddie named after her husband. Wait a minute. Eddie, come. She wanted named after her husband. She donated him for the purpose of community service. So he will be trained in therapy dog, good at citizen.
Things like that.
Yeah, to go into schools, hospitals.
And obviously, if our other canines I can't just come up to their dogs and pet
Right.
them like this and interact with
Right.
those dogs. So
Right. And he
that's
plays,
the purpose
yeah.
of the.
And he's been in a lot of events where he's with Rainbow for Kids, or Rainbow for Kids for Cancer. He was in, his first event was the Sacred Heart Parade,
Okay.
and the Monsignor and him walked in the parade, and he loved it. He's very good with kids. He loves kids. He actually gets kind of snotty if he doesn't get attention. Can
Okay.
you
Well,
tell?
that's perfect for a public relations dog, I guess.
Come
right?
here, Eddie. Come on.
So,
boy.
what has been the reaction from that you've seen from adults, kids, anyone that's been in contact with Eddie? What have you seen personally? how people
Kids love
react?
playing with him. They love hugging him. They're just very Eddie. They play ball with him, shake. He just has a good time with people.
Okay.
He is awful whiny today, but
And then the chief and I, when we were talking, he said that how we've had such a good reaction out of the officers in the station, and people that don't necessarily even like dogs come up to Eddie and interact with them and love petting them. So
yeah. He is very popular at the station. The guys love playing with him, and I think sometimes when tension is high, he's a good release because
Sure.
they'll be playing ball and petting him, and he loves to play,
he loves to play.
and he
Now,
loves attention. He
does
demands
Eddie
attention.
do tricks yet?
He shakes.
He does.
Yes.
All right. So, are you going to show us some of the tricks maybe that he does?
Well, how about
or-
Barracuda?
Okay.
He doesn't do a whole lot. We're
Okay.
still working on it.
Well,
We're
we
going
can
through
have,
basic trainings right now. Barracuda, come here.
We're going to have somebody come out and maybe do some
Come
tricks
here.
with him. Now, this is your
This is my nephew, Barracuda. Will you have him shake for me? I'll take the phone. Here.
All right, let's.
We're gonna
Cameras
so
over
you
here,
can be
so-
seen. Here's your treat. Make him sit.
Sit.
Now make him shake. Put your hand up. Barracuda, you got to put the treat in the other hand. Now make him shake.
Shake.
There you go.
Good boy. All
We've
right.
been going on long walks, haven't we, with him?
So, what do you think of Eddie?
Really good. I love him.
You like him?
You cuddled with him last night.
Yeah.
He likes cuddling.
Yep. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about with Eddie and what maybe his future might be? And
I think
what's
he'll be
your
good
hope
in the
for the
schools
moment?
and teach him awareness. I'd like to, so kids know how to approach dogs for officer as far as kids' safety with dogs. Period. Not just canine dogs.
Right.
And then maybe the dogs can be trained, and with love and affection, they can be brought into a lot of homes. Maybe it'll save a lot of dogs too.
Go.
But I think it's good therapy for the kids. I think the kids love playing with him, and
Oh, and another thing, Eddie has his own Facebook page, right?
oh yes, he does.
Can you talk about that for a little bit? And let everybody-
Sherry Opage, the one that bought the dog, she started a Facebook page with Eddie, and it's very popular. It's getting a lot of hits. It's him doing silly things, which he's notorious for.
Gotcha. And what is the Facebook page?
Eddie, the fluorescent police dog.
Eddie the Fluorescent Police
I
Dog.
believe that's right, isn't it?
So we'll search that on, if you want to search that on Facebook, Eddie the Fluorescent Police Dog, and like his page, and you'll see all of his updates for that Sherry Opich puts on there, and
Right.
kind of follow his
Come here,
story as it progresses. So, well, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Eddie,
Thanks.
for coming on the show. And we'll be right back with some June crime statistics and some information about some upcoming, information about some recent scams we've had in Florissant. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Now we're going to review the June crime statistics for 2015. There were 5 robberies in the month of June. They were reported at the following locations. On June 12th, in the 600 block of North New Florissant Road. On June 16th, in the 13,000 block of New Halls Ferry. On June 18th, in the 3,500 block of Parker Road. On June 20th, in the 3,500 block of Parker Road. And on June 21st, in the 500 block of Pelican Island. There were 14 residential burglaries in the month of June, and they were reported at the following locations. On June 6th, in the 300 block of Countryside. On June 8th, in the 500 block of Parkside. On June 9th, in the 2100 block of Kevin. Also on June 9th, in the 2400 block of Jenke. June 10th, in the 200 block of Downing. Also on June 10th, in the 1000 block of South Lafayette. On June 11th, in the 2800 block of Notting Hill Row. On June 21st, in the 500 block of Larry. Also on June 21st, in the 3000 block of Sir Christopher. On June 23rd, in the 1st block of Marquette. June 23rd, the 500 block of St. Anthony. And the final one on June 23rd in the 1900 block of St. Louis Street. June 29th, we had one in the 2000 block of St. Catherine. And the last one on June 26th in the 700 block of Mendocino. There were 5 motor vehicle thefts in the month of June, and they were reported at the following locations. On June 12th in the 2800 block of Patterson. On June 20th in the 8400 block of North Lindbergh. June 23rd in the 3300 block of Santiago. June 25th in the 12,000 block of Newhalls Ferry. And on June 29th in the 1700 block of St. Anthony. There were 87 stealings in the month of June and 13 property damages in the month of June. Now, before the end of the show, I would like to mention a few things. In the last couple of months, we have had a lot of scams that have involved targeted elderly residents here in Florissant. I just wanted to briefly mention a few of those scams and let you know that they were happening so you can not become a victim of those scams. The first one I'd like to talk about is the pigeon drop scam. This is the one we've seen the most of in the last 6 months. And that typically is a scam that involves someone in a parking lot of a store, typically a grocery store or a retail store like Target or Kmart. The victims are being approached in the parking lot, and the suspect typically starts to strike up a conversation with the victim and befriend the victim. And then a second suspect comes up to them and joins the conversation and typically has some sort of money or items that they have found that would be enticing to the victim to want. Typically it's money, sometimes it's very expensive jewelry or items like that. The details of the scam are pretty complicated and they change from scam to scam. However, what all the pigeon drop scams typically involve is the suspects want you to put up some sort of good faith money, and they typically want you to withdraw that money from a banking institution right away. So if you're ever approached by someone in the parking lot and they befriend you and approach you with some sort of a large payoff and want you to withdraw money as good faith money, please do not entertain that whatsoever. Let them know that you're not interested, and then contact the police department as soon as possible. If you could get a description of the people or the vehicles that they're driving, that would be great. But the main thing is do not withdraw money and give these suspects money for the promise of a high payoff or a high amount of money. The second largest scam that's going on here in Florissant in the last few months is the IRS scam. And this is very different from the scam that, not necessarily a scam, but this is very different from the IRS, people getting tax returns in your name and then cashing that money. This is an actual phone scam, all right? So what happens is we've been getting calls from residents that have been receiving phone calls from a person that identifies himself as an IRS agent. The IRS agent is very convincing. They say that the resident owes money to the IRS, and they want and demand immediate payment for that debt that they say that the resident owes to the IRS. This is a scam. The important thing is the IRS will never contact you by phone. It's always in writing first, and there's a process that they go through. They will never report you to a collection agency before starting up a case with you, for lack of better terms, and they will never demand money immediately over the phone. So basically, do not give any credit card information, do not give send any money orders, do not entertain any IRS people that identify themselves over the phone demanding money from you. And another important thing is we've actually had these fake IRS agents threaten residents with calling the Florissant Police Department and saying that we're going to come arrest them. And I promise you that we are not involved in that. We don't do that. So please do not fall for this IRS phone scam. If you have any questions on that, you can call me at the police department. The third one I want to talk about is a technical support scam. That's another one that we've been seeing a large amount of in the last 4 to 6 months, and that is another phone scam. The victims that I've talked to state that the person calls them on the phone, claims to be a Best Buy representative or someone who works for Microsoft or some sort of computer affiliation, and says that there is a virus or something along those lines on their computer and that they would like to get access to your computer so they can take those viruses away. So they try to convince the residents to click on a certain link or give them access to their computer somehow, and they will typically walk you through that process. They get access to your computer, and then they can plant their own viruses. They can look at personal information. They can do all kinds of things that you may not know until 2 or 3 weeks or a month later that your computer is even infected. So the important thing to remember is only you know that you have some sort of issue with your computer. There's no way for these businesses to know remotely that, hey, this person's got a virus on their computer. So please, if you don't initiate that call to the business that you want to get these viruses off of your computer, do not give anyone over the phone that just calls you and says you have a virus access to your computer. That's the most important thing. Is if you think you have a virus or they call you and tell you have a virus, then just let them know. I'll take care of it, and then you would take your computer to a professional that you choose, not someone that just calls you and says, hey, I need access to your computer. Click on this link, and this link, and I'll take care of it for you. Not only are they getting access to your computer, sometimes they're actually charging you money to infect your computer with a virus or get your personal information. So those are the 3 main things I wanted to talk about today. And the main thing is, with all of these scams, especially the pigeon drop, is if it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. So just be aware of that before you fall victim to these scams and lose, in some cases, thousands of dollars. Again, if you have any questions about any of the scams that we've talked about, the crime statistics, or you'd like to report any suspicious activities, please call the Florissant Police Department at 314-831-7000, our non-emergency number. If it's an emergency, please dial 911. You can call my office at 314-830-6042. If it's an emergency, please don't dial me. Go ahead and dial the emergency number or the non-emergency number. And you can also reach me by email at cdhart@florissantmo.com. I'll see you on the next episode of FPD Roll Call. Thanks for watching.